I've watched a lot of horror anthologies. I like being able to see a whole bunch of different takes on a single subject or theme or topic. And it's also interesting to see how tiny the threads can be that can connect all of these short stories. The thread that shapes horror anthologies is very unique because it could be just about anything. Let me give you a few examples. VHS is an anthology where all of the short films are found footage. Holidays is an anthology where all of the short films are based on different holidays. XX is an anthology where all of the short films are directed by women. But what if there was a bit more to the thread that connected all of the different short films? What if it was more than just a thin thread? Is it possible for the thread to be more than just that and still have it be an anthology? This is why I want to talk about the 2020 Hulu original film Books of Blood. As a horror anthology, Books of Blood is unique. It has 3 separate stories. However, the third story is a way to connect all 3 of the stories in the one narrative. In other words, each story in the horror anthology isn't just some random thing happening who knows where. All of these stories are happening in the same place. Books of Blood isn't the first horror anthology film to have a whole bunch of stories take place in the same place. For example, Tales of Halloween consists of 10 short films that all take place in the same town. But what makes Books of Blood different? Well, Books of Blood uses a much stronger narrative threads to connect the 3 stories. In Tales of Halloween, you don't even get to see characters overlapping within different parts of the stories. When making this video, I honestly forgot that in Tales of Halloween, all of the stories take place in the same town. It's very easy to forget when the stories don't interact with each other in any sort of way. This is where Books of Blood is different. The characters in the third story in Books of Blood actually encounter and interact with places and characters within the first 2 parts of the anthology. It made me wonder what it would look like if the narrative threads between different parts of an anthology were even stronger than that. When trying to think about what it would look like to have a stronger narrative thread, there was a particular film that came to mind. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Isn't Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark what I would get if I wanted way more narrative to connect a whole bunch of different short horror stories? It's true that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is adapted from a book series that contains a whole lot of different horror stories. But does that make Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark a horror anthology? Well, let's think about what actually happens in that film. A whole bunch of kids break into a house. They cause this supernatural force of death, which then starts to systematically try to kill every single person who is involved. Bear with me for a moment. Replace the abandoned house with an airplane. And instead of the kids breaking into the house, let's say that one of the kids gets a vision that they're all gonna die in the airplane, so they don't get on the airplane. You still have a supernatural force of death that then tries to systematically kill every single one of them. Now you have Final Destination. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is Final Destination. And I don't think anybody's willing to say that Final Destination is a horror anthology film. Therefore, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is not a horror anthology. At the end of the day, what I'm really wondering is where we draw the line. At what point does it stop being a horror anthology and start being just a regular horror film? If I'm being completely honest, I don't know. I don't have the answer to this question. Books of Blood has done an excellent job at making me rethink horror anthologies.